Good afternoon, everyone. It is good to see you. Well, good afternoon from the Midwest. I know there's people joining from all over, so it may be afternoon, maybe evening where you're at. Welcome, and if you could put in the chat, I see the chat already getting loaded up. So if you could just tell us a little bit about where you're from and what business that you're in, or maybe you're just here with a business idea. Either way, go ahead, post that in there. We'd like to know where you're from. I've got several people from, let's see, got one from Dubai. Hello. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing names here. Is it Maid? I hope I'm getting that right. So glad you could join us. And Hakeem, nice to meet you from St. Kitts. Okay, very good. And in the Caribbean. Yeah, I kind of know that area a little bit. I was a navigator in the Marine Corps, and we often had to plot courses to places that aren't not necessarily that well known. So I'm glad you could join us. Sarah from Olympia, Washington. Sarah, tell us a little bit about what business idea or what business that you're in. Same with you. Sorry, these are really, really small. Saleh from Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Very good. I'm glad you could join us. Yes, thank you. Got it right. All right, very good. Maid. Nashville, Tennessee. It's 2 p.m. over here. All right, Crystal. I'm your neighbor to the north. I'm in Lafayette, Indiana, so almost about 5.5 hours north, and I don't need much of a reason to go to Nashville. I love it there. Jasmine Richardson from Chicago, Illinois. Again, if you guys could just let us know what business ideas that you're either a business that you're in or business idea, because obviously that's why you're here. You're looking for you to put together some business plans. Record label New York. I don't. Is that not a city? You're looking to do a record label? I don't know. What do you mean by that, Carlos? I'm from New York. I actually grew up in the Catskills, so I'm pretty familiar with the New York area. So anyway, small business consulting, Sarah. Moving from COO from a company to launching my own. Very, very good. So this is going to fit with you hand in glove. All right. So go ahead and keep putting that stuff in there. I will acknowledge you guys. And the reason this is important for me to know what kind of businesses that you're in is so I can help adjust my narrative to fit you guys and help you as much as I possibly can. I don't have knowledge in all business areas, of course. That would be pretty impossible. But I do want to make sure that this business plan and this time that we're spent together over the next 57 minutes is worth your while. And I am going to give you some resources today that will cost you nothing. I'm not here to sell you anything. I just want to share this stuff with you that I have come to glean over the last 25 years or so that I've been in business for myself. I've made about every possible mistake you can make in business. I didn't always get it right. In fact, you can get it wrong a lot more than right and still do very, very well. In fact, getting it wrong is part of the process. So if you're one of those who are opposed to kind of making any mistakes or looking foolish, man, get that out of your head. Failure is part of the process, and it's just about getting back up, dusting yourself back off, and going, okay, that didn't work. Let's figure out another way. But this is something that we're going to be talking about today around creating a personal vision, but really specifically about creating a business plan. And let me just put this out there now so you can be okay with this. I know sometimes when it comes to business plans, people are way more worried about form over substance. And it does matter. I'm not going to suggest that form doesn't matter if you are presenting this to a board of directors, if you are presenting your business plan to a banker or an investor or something like that. Absolutely critical. That is very, very important. But what we're going to be going through today is a lot more substance than form. So there's plenty of I mean, you can Google business plans. You could have gone and done that already, and the chances are you're probably thinking, well, I need a little bit more clarity. So what I'm going to do first and foremost is I'm going to take a more strategic approach to showing you how to do this, and I'm going to show you through the lens of what I call the Viper method, right? So I'm going to teach you the Viper method first, and then we're going to go through a business plan after that. But before I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, because what I want you to do, I just want to kind of establish some ground rules here today, and I'm going to ask you a couple of things. First and foremost, please don't multitask. I know it's really difficult to not multitask. Our phones are always plugged in, and everyone says that the attention span is just really short for people today. I don't buy that. I think that just people's tolerance for being bored is very low. So I know some of the material that I'm gonna go through is a little dry, but the point is that you're doing this so you can create another business. So if you're there like trying to do a spreadsheet and doing something else while you're listening to this, I'm just telling you you're not going to be as effective because you're going to be missing certain nuggets that might be very relevant to you. So use this next 54 minutes to train your brain to concentrate. Our brains are very much like a muscle in that aspect, where that concentration is like a muscle and it gets better with use over time. Right now, I am in a PhD program, not for any particular reason other than just a goal of mine. And I'm having to retrain my brain in different avenues than I have in a really long time. I haven't been in school in like 25 years. And I'm having to access parts of my brain that I haven't had to in a really long time. And it's tough because concentration doesn't come easy for me in my beautifully broken ADHD brain. Do I have any other ADHD people out there? Probably most of you if you're in entrepreneurship. So I get it, but I'm just letting you know. Please let's all stay plugged in over the next 50 minutes or so. All right. So we're going to be taking a strategic approach, which means a top-down approach. And I want to talk about this really in terms of who is this for. This is for either new businesses or established businesses. So that means that you should, even if you're new in business and you're looking at business down the road again, like you might think, okay, well, if you've been, let's say you started your business today and in a year from now, yes, you should look back at your business plan. Why? Because the business plan adjusts. It needs to get tweaked. And you're going to understand why that is because over time, your business will not only will your business evolve and adapt and adjust, but so will the market conditions. So will your avatar, meaning your ideal client. So will your product or service offering. Right? All of those evolutions, every time you adjust a toggle on one of those things, you're going to need to look back at your business plan and readjust. So this is why this is so incredibly important for you to recognize how to do this. So this really is for a new or established business. I don't care if you've been in business for 20 minutes or 20 years. This is for you. So what I want to do first and foremost, I know I've asked you not to multitask, and here I am asking you to multitask. All right. So what I want you to do, if I want you to go to strategicboardroom.com, but before you do that, let me do something here real quick. I'm going to take this down. I'm going to share. Let's see. I'm going to stop that screen. I'm going to share this with you really quick because I want to show you how to get to I want to show you how to access this. So if we go to this, sorry, this is taking me longer. Close that. There we go. All right. So I'm gonna go here, and I just want to show you how to get to the spot on strategicboardroom.com so you can do this on your own outside of where I'm at. So if you go to strategicboardroom.com, you see up here on the right-hand side where it says courses and logins. I want you to go there. Okay, so you're going to go to courses and logins, and this is where there's paid courses and there's all sorts of free stuff as well. So if you scroll down just a little bit, you'll scroll down past the paid courses and paid stuff. Right here, it's where it says free 9-step business business plan template. Just you can either click on the words or either one, but it's going to, as you click on that, it's going to open up the template. So you don't even have to enter your email address. It's going to open up the traditional business plan template, and you can get that for absolutely free. So I'm going to be going through that in just a moment. We're going to get to that at the end, but I just wanted to make sure that you knew how to access that, and it is 100% for free. So again, you don't even have to enter in your email address. Yes, I've already got your email address, but I'm going to be sending this as a replay for you. So if you forget how to get there, when you get the replay of this video, you can go back to that. And there's other, like, again, there's plenty of free stuff in there. If there's some more advanced paid stuff, if that's really what you're looking for, there's other stuff in there for you as well. So let me get back to sharing my screen so we can get back to the PowerPoint. And Bob's your uncle. All right, there we go. So strategicboardroom.com. Here is, that's where you can go and go into the free and paid courses there. Let me just take a quick look at the chat. Staten Island. Okay, I know Staten Island. So I was just about an hour north of you in the Catskills, Carlos. So I'm glad you're starting a record label. That is super cool. Jasmine, you're in nursing and advocacy. I love that. Good for you. Grant AI Company. gathering and autofilling all of European grants and fundings. That's great. Thank you, Maros. I appreciate you coming. Nashville has definitely evolved. I'm a returning student majoring business and entrepreneurship, and I have a few business ideas. That's great, Crystal. And here's what I want to share with you is that what you're going to be learning in school and what you're going to be learning here today, they're not. They're going to seem like they're mutually exclusive, but they're not. The thing is that my background is in accounting and finance from Purdue, and I will tell you that most of the things that I learned in business school really just didn't apply right away in business. So I'm not suggesting that it was bad or wrong or that those things didn't uh weren't relevant. It's just it didn't apply right away, especially in entrepreneurship, because entrepreneurship is it's just such a different bird, right? And many times people are looking at entrepreneurship not from a micro level, right? But they're looking at it from a macro level of like small businesses is considered by the SBA, the Small Business Association, or the Small Business Administration, as less than 500 employees. That's a big company for most people, right? So I'm looking at the micro level of people who are solopreneurs and up to about 20 employees. Beyond that, I start adding myself in as a consultant because consulting is a little different bird than what I do as a strategist. So this is just a little bit different. So I'm glad you could join us today. Carl, back you're in Atlanta, aren't you, Carl? You're in Superfood, if I remember right. I'm glad you could join us today. What is the website again? It is strategicboardroom.com. Let me go back to that real quick. There it is right there, strategicboardroom.com. And you go to courses and logins, and I'll go over that again at the end. So, and I will send this to you again on a replay. All right, my business is specialized body care. Very good, Kristen. I'm glad you could join us. All right, everybody, let's get to it. Here's the agenda first and foremost. So we're going to be talking about the framework. First and foremost, it's going to be the Viper framework. We're going to be talking about the people function. We're going to be talking about the 4 core functions. And then we're going to talk about scaling and how to grow this thing. And then we're going to speak about around things around growing your business. But specifically, we're also going to be bringing it back into the resources, which is the business plan itself. Okay, so we're going to be walking through that. Here's what I'm going to ask you. I know I asked you to pull up that business plan so you had access to it. Just wait to look at that because I'm going to show you that later on. If you're looking at that while you're trying to listen to me, I know some of you are doing it. You're like, damn, does he look at my computer? No, but I know how entrepreneurs think, and it's hard for you not to multitask. So just stay plugged in with me here on the slides for just a little bit. These are first, we're going to start off with the systems. The systems part of the business is everything I wrote about in the Time Wealthy Advantage. And if you are interested in a copy of the book, you can get it on the website. I'm not here to promote the book. You can also get it on Amazon, but you can get a way better deal if you buy it through me on the website. If you are domestic U.S., if you're outside the domestic U.S., my recommendation is go ahead and buy it through Amazon. But I'm not here to press that. I'm just want to show you that that book is the premise of what I wrote about in which is the Viper method that I wrote about in the Time Wealthy Advantage. So let's unpack that. The Viper method is an acronym for vision, infrastructure, process, execution, and reporting. Vision is specifically where it is that you want to go. And it has 2 components, which is personal vision and business vision. So for those of you who are returning people, I'm starting to recognize some names over and over. This is going to be a little bit of a review for you, but just hang in there because I'm going to make this very relevant to the business plan at the end. So it's extremely relevant because all of these things that I have extracted from my own business classes, from what I see business plans look like that they're teaching in entrepreneurial classes in school. This is the stuff that I have extracted and kind of made it a little bit easier and a little bit more bite-sized than this big ugly thing that they create with this business plan. So I just want you to stay plugged in with this for right now. So the personal vision, first and foremost, is about you. And your personal vision is just going to ask a very basic question like, where do you want to go? Where do you want to go in life? So when I'm asking this question, because the business exists, I'm assuming that you want the business to exist to serve you so you can have a better life, not so you can continually serve the business. Because if that were the case, I would just say go get a job because you'll wind up probably with more money and probably with more time off. I'm just saying. Like, there was a guy who I had originally started coaching, and at the time he was a very, very busy business owner, and he was a part owner of a cleaning company. And he was so busy from from I mean basically 7 days a week. And when we amortized how much he was actually making versus how many hours he was working per week, he came to the I came to the realization for him, and I did the math. I said you would make more money being an assistant manager at a Wendy's, because at the time assistant managers at Wendy's were paying about $16 an hour. And he goes, I got to get out of this business. I said, yeah, because you're not making anywhere near the money that you're making, that you think you're making, and you are busy and you can never ever stop. And it's your thing. Like, you can never fire yourself. So he went back to his business partner, sold his share of the business back to his business partner, and he went on to go do some pretty amazing things and is making significantly more money now working for someone else as he builds his other stuff out. Now he knows what he wants to build. Even though he's working for someone else, he has a plan to work for himself eventually. But that's part of his personal vision, is he wants to do his own thing. He just wants to make sure that the business vision and his personal vision don't become the same thing, right? So the personal vision is going to ask you where you want to go. The business vision is going to say, cool, how are we going to get there? Right? And the danger in creating a business vision without ever creating a personal vision, or a business vision before you create a personal vision, is that you end up creating a life that exists to serve the business. And that's exactly where I had been for many, many years of my life, where I lived for the business and the business never loved me as much as I loved it. And I'm just telling you, man, that sucks. And I'm just going to be honest with you. In my 20s, you could not have told me this. Yeah. Let me make my 50 grand a month, and then I'll worry about that better life stuff. Couldn't have told me anything. I want to give all of you credit for being on this call right now, for recognizing that this at least is a possibility. If you're kind of like throw the bullshit, the BS flag right now, right? So I don't mean to swear, but if you're throwing the BS flag and going, hey, like, I don't really believe that, okay, fine. But just what if it were true? Because I spent way too much of my 20s and 30s believing that my business vision was my personal vision. So I'm just telling you, that I want something different for you. That's all. I just don't want you going down that same trap. So if you're going to establish a personal vision, this is one of the ways that I love to do it, is to consider your 100th birthday speech. Is, who would you want to be there? What would you say during the 100th birthday speech? What would you want others to say to you after you were done talking? And finally, what message would you like them to carry outside the room when you were done speaking? That's all stuff that I want you to consider for your 100th birthday speech. So when you're actually putting together the your personal vision, your business vision exists to serve your personal vision. All right. So let's talk about the 3 C's of your business vision, because you have to define your business vision as well. Now, this is going to be critical for the business planning later on. So don't just dismiss this stuff. Think about this, not right now, but later when you have time. I want you to start thinking about what the 3 C's of your business vision are. And they amount to your core purpose, your core values, and your client avatar. Your core purpose is specifically what business that you're in and what problems do you specifically solve. And I say specific. It's really important that you're specific. I know some of you are really specific about what it is that you do, which is great, right? Like Kristen, you said that your business is specialized body care. Now, I would say, I hope you're more specific than that. And I'm not beating you up on, I don't mean to beat you up. I'm just using you as an example. But I'm assuming you like, is that physical massage? Is that with certain types of foods? Is it with certain type of vitamins or supplements or things like that? What does that mean for you, right? And I'm assuming that you have a core purpose. You're like, hey, I actually do all 3, and because I have a very specific dialed in avatar. We're gonna get to the avatar here in a second. So for me, I'm very avatar focused. I have a core purpose that's about helping married business couples with kids at home who have a business, right? That, for me, I know what that avatar needs, and I know what struggles they have, because for me, I am a member of that avatar audience. I know what the struggles are, right? Where if you're in business with your guy or your gal or your partner or whatever, and you're in business with them, and date night becomes a board meeting, ask me how I know. And that's the thing. Like my bride, she runs our property management business now, and when I come home, she'll ask me a couple questions, and I'll say, okay, about whatever it is, related to business, and I'm like, okay, can we be done with business for the rest of the night? She'll say, yep, I'm sorry, whatever, and then that's it, right? We don't talk about it. But when she calls me during the day, I know she's calling me about business. But that's because we have boundaries in place. But it's also very really important because we know what the core purpose is of our business. It's really important that you get dialed in to your core purpose and know what business that you're in and what problems do you solve, and you know what business you're not in, right? You should be obnoxious about what business that you're not in. Starbucks does not sell soup. You know why? Because they don't want to sell soup. They sell drinks. They sell beverages. They don't want to sell soup. But this is also why you got to get really clear about your core purpose, about what business you're in, what problems you solve, and also obnoxiously what business that you're not in. So let's talk about core values. Core values are what matters to you about this business, and how would the world be worse off if you went out of business? Near the end, I'm going to be talking more about core values and why these are so incredibly important. So please don't dismiss this like, oh, this sounds so, fruity. Like, I need to know about the finance stuff. I'm telling you, your business won't scale if your core values are not aligned, because you're going to need people, you're going to need others to do some more of the work that you can't get to, because the reality is you're only one person. When you start bringing in other people and when you start bringing in other leaders into your organization, now you're not growing just by addition, you're growing by multiplication, because they are bringing in their tribes, they're bringing in their people. That's why it's really important that your core values are also aligned. And I'll tell you, many people who come onto this call will not stay. Now, I'm not saying many, a good chunk. You know why? Because they'll go, I don't like this guy. I don't like his face. I don't like what he's about. I don't like the fact that he said he likes this and doesn't like that. Okay, that's fine. But when I'm really clear about my core values, that means I'm attracting the people that I want to work with and I'm repelling the people who don't. I got a pretty scathing email yesterday from someone who pretty much called me out in terms of what I was, right? Like, I'm an American, I'm a conservative, like, you think this and that. I'm like, yeah, okay, right? But making a lot of judgments that were, about me. Okay, that's fine. Guess what? You're not my avatar. That's fine. Go away. And they kind of self-selected. They're, removed themselves from my tribe. But this is the sort of thing that you want to think about, because you want to attract the people that are like you. You want to attract the people that you want to work with, and you want to repel the people who don't. And that's okay. And your core values will help you establish your company culture. They will help you establish your company brand. And those two things, culture and brand, are inextricably linked. You cannot separate them. If you try, you will fail. And that's the thing. And keep in mind, brand can also not be a great thing, right? Your brand should be a positive thing, not a negative thing. We'll get into that. So the last C is the client avatar, and who specifically and ideally do you want to serve? And this is, again, what are their geographics, demographics, and psychographics? Geographics are where they are, demographics is who they are, and psychographics is how psycho they are, right? No, I'm kidding. Psychographics is how they think. And when you're thinking about psychographics, I want you to think about ALIA, ALIA. That is their attitudes, their lifestyles, their interests, and their aspirations and goals. I want you to think about this in terms of psychographics, because it's really important. It will be massively important when you are marketing to them. Because if you are marketing to them and you're like trying to market to everybody, you're going to reach nobody. Okay, so that's really, really important to think about that in terms of geographics, where they are, demographics, who they are they married, are they single, or what age group do they land in, blah, 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 right? And then the psychographics in terms of their lifestyles, their attitudes, right? Their interests and aspirations. Kristen, you're saying body butter and body oil. Very good. Okay, perfect. So these are the sorts of things, again, that is, so you're kind of dialed in terms of what your product is, right? We're going to get to that when we get into the business plan itself. So those are the 3 C's of business vision. That is vision. We're going to put the fries in the bag on that one. And then we're going to talk about infrastructure. Infrastructure is the bones of the business, right? It's the desks, the chairs, the software, websites, all of the infrastructure stuff, all the stuff that you are going to need that stays in alignment with your vision. So the reason why vision comes first is because if your personal vision is to lay on the beach in Spain, rubbing cocoa butter on your belly for 2 months out of the year, and if you build an infrastructure that's going to require you to return emails and phone calls in a timely manner, that's going to be a horrible experience for you when you're trying to lay on the beach rubbing cocoa butter on your belly, right? So you're creating this vision first, and the infrastructure aligns with that vision. It aligns with the business vision, which aligns with the personal vision, okay? So all of it it has to be in alignment. So when you're looking at your vision, the Viper method, you're looking at vision, then infrastructure, next comes process. So let's talk about process. Process is simply how you do stuff, right? It's basically from a tactical perspective or a strategic perspective. Let's look at tactical first, okay? So again, this is how you do stuff. Let's talk about tactical. Tactical part of the process is simply how you do stuff, such as your standard operating procedures, right? It's your checklists and your things like that, and your day-to-day activities. Think of your tactical things like how you answer the phone, your opening procedures, your closing procedures, how you prepare bank deposits, things like that. Those are all day-to-day things that people like, just boring stuff that people don't want to ever take the time to actually categorize or write about, but this is the stuff that's just kind of your standard everyday stuff that you do. That part right there, both the infrastructure and the tactical part of process, if you look at the screen, that little box around infrastructure and the tactical part of process, that's where your system, that's your business system. So I know there's a lot of people on this call. Where are my systems people? I know you're out there. Where are my systems, right? My systems and processes people. That's where your systems and processes are, right? Is your infrastructure and your tactical processes. So that is your system. Now let's talk about your strategic part of the process. So we built this warship, we built this battleship, and we want to take it out of the harbor, right? We want to go out and make some trouble. That's what you're doing with strategy. So the strategic planning part of your process, it involves people, it involves purpose, and involves promotion. The people side of the strategic planning is you recognizing that you are only one person and you can't do it all. Like, you may not even have the skill set. And the problem with many entrepreneurs that I end up working with, both as a strategist or as a coach or consultant, the thing is that many business owners that I work with, they're really smart, and they also have a very good work ethic. The problem is that they're really smart and they have a very good work ethic. And the problem with that is that they think every problem that comes to them is for them to solve or for them to work on. So as a result, they'll end up working 20 or 22 hours a day, hand raised, and they'll do this. So they don't recognize that they need other people to fill in the gaps for things that they're not great at. You know what I'm not great at? Ironically enough, I have a background in accounting and finance. My weakness is accounting and finance. I am the least qualified person to do my own books in my business, in any of my businesses. So you know what I do? I hire it out. I bring other people in who can do that job faster, better, and more skilled than I can. Now, can I look at the numbers and make sense of them? Yes. From a high level, I can do that. And I'm very good with the granular details that are relevant. But for me to do the day-to-day books, not a good use of my time at all. That's why I need to bring people in. So I want you to think of this metric. For anybody that you are bringing in, right? Let's say that you're doing a job that you could pay someone else $20 an hour to do. Okay? So you're bringing someone else. Let's say you're doing a task that you could pay someone else $20 an hour to do. That's what you're paying yourself when you're doing it. So for those of you who want to be, deca millionaires, the math doesn't work. There's not enough time in the day for you to do $20 an hour work and for you to do stuff like that. So you have to recognize that at certain points, at certain junctions, at certain milestones, that's when you need to start bringing other people in so you can start focusing your time and attention on other functions, especially functions that are higher dollar. So if you're doing work that is $200 an hour or $500 an hour, right? For me, my billing rate sometimes can exceed $1,000 an hour. It just depends on what stuff that I'm doing. So I want to do more of the $1,000 an hour stuff, and I want to do less of the $10 an hour stuff, right? It's just common sense. But I want you to think about that from that perspective. Is that making sense to everybody? Just type in "make sense" or "nope, full of crap," right? Either way, I just needed to get a pulse in terms of where you guys are at. So that is the people side of the equation, right? So and I want to make sure that you understand the strategic planning side of that. The purpose side. Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate that. So, thank you, Maros. Makes sense. All right, very good. Thank you, Carl. Okay, so the purpose. All right, Hakeem, thank you. So this is from the purpose side. This is where the purpose, the strategic planning purpose, the strategic purpose has to match and align with your core purpose of the business. The reason for that is because if you're saying like, if you're saying, for example, like, okay, well, I like Starbucks wants to sell chainsaws. That doesn't make any sense. You know why? Because Starbucks sells coffee. Why would it sell chainsaws? It doesn't align with their core purpose, right? So this is where you have to start to think of the core purpose of this strategic plan. Is it to gain market share? Is it to launch a new product or service? Is it to is it for others? What's the other purpose for this strategic plan, right? What is that? And then finally is the promotion piece. That's letting the world know what it is that you're doing, whether internally to your internal people or to your external potential customers, right? So you might be launching a new product or service, or you might be going into a completely new market, right? That's part of the promotional piece. So you have to make sure that all three of those components are part of your strategic plan. So I'm going to put that to bed for right now, but there is, when it comes to process, there's both tactical and strategic. Now let's talk about execution. Execution is just basically making sure that stuff gets done, because a good plan violently executed now and today is far better than a perfect plan next week. That was General George Patton, who's a World War II general from the United States. And the point is because most plans fall apart in execution. That's why you have to determine what your priorities are. Now, for those of you who have, like, again, the to-do list of 74 items, where are you at? I know you're out there, right? I've got my to-do list of 74 items, right? Well, the problem is you have too many priorities. And the trouble is if you have too many priorities, it has the same impact as having no priorities. So having too many priorities, this is the way that you boil this down, is you want to make sure that you're in alignment by using a daily 5. Now, what are the daily 5? The daily 5 are the up to 5 very specific items that you will take action on that will move the needle towards your vision or towards your strategic plan, either one, right? So what I'm talking about is is check email on my daily 5. No, because check email is way too broad. That doesn't mean anything. If it was like host webinar on Business Plan 101, yes, that's part of my needle moving activity. You know why? Because it gets my name out there and it lets me demonstrate some competence so that you guys know what it is that I'm good at. And none of you may become a client of mine. That's okay. I'm not here to promote that. But I am putting myself out there to let people know that, hey, I've got some knowledge and I'm pretty good at what I do. And I can say that I'm pretty good at what I do, not in an arrogant way, but in a way that owns what I'm good at, because there are plenty of things that I'm terrible at, right? Just ask my bride. She will tell you, right? But all kidding aside, there's some things that I'm really good at, and this is about me promoting that. And this is part of my execution, is making sure that this is one of the things that was a needle moving activity. I'm on lots of podcasts. For me, I'll be on a podcast tomorrow, not me, my podcast, someone else's podcast. They're interviewing me. That is a needle moving activity, right? So for me, I like a daily 3, because a daily 3 really hones in on what I'm good at versus a daily 5. Sometimes I start to get a little bit too fragmented if I do 5, but I would say 5 is the absolute maximum. So then the final part was we have the reporting function. The reporting function is just making sure we're tracking about what's happened. And you do this through lead metrics and lag metrics. The lead metrics are based on your actions and your activity. That's it. So basically your actions and activities are your lead metrics, and that's all you're getting. That's all you're measuring for your lead metrics, because that's what you can control. You really don't have a lot of control over your results, which are your lag metrics. So your results would be like, let's say I promoted this event, for example, and I spent some money promoting this event, right? And I have lots of people that sign up for this, right? I have like well over 100, I think 100 signed up, over 100 signed up for this. And I have 17 on here right now. That's actually pretty common, right? Many people who tell me that they do Eventbrite stuff, they will have people sign up for these. They may have 200 or 300 that sign up and maybe 1 or 2 show, right? So for me, my average is actually a little higher than normal for most, especially for non-paid events. That's pretty typical, right? But the thing is, like, why am I telling you this? Because I don't have any control over who shows up. I have zero control over that. I don't have any. I have control about what my actions and activities are, but I don't have any control over the results. So what can I control? I can control my actions and my activities. That's why I'm putting that out there. So so then if I'm not getting the results I want, all I have to do is adjust my activities. Because if I put something out and the offer sucks, Okay, well, the offer sucks. The people have spoken, all right? The tribe has spoken. So I'm telling you this now so you can start to adjust your own actions and activities if you're not getting the results you want. Don't make it any more than what it is, okay? And be open to the feedback. All right, so that's the Viper methodology. The next is this psychology, and this is about lessons on management and leadership. Specifically, the psychology, because the reality is systems are important, but the systems are only going to get you so far. The systems, they offer stability, they offer consistency, they offer accountability, but they are limited because they are making subjective decisions. That's very difficult for systems, right? Or adapting to market changes, especially rapid market changes. Coming up with creative solutions can be tough for systems, and also making and establishing and maintaining human connections. And I hear about it. Oh, but you don't know AI, right? I'm just telling you, yes. But at the end of the day, I'm not talking about having just a conversation with people. I'm talking about relationships. And that's the difference between those who are really leaning heavily on AI. I think AI is an amazing tool for what it is. But if you're looking to replace human connections, I'm telling you, it is going to disappoint you every time, because the human connection is when face to face. This is why I don't do this thing with just a faceless voice, because I want you to see my inflection and my tonality and everything else. You're not going to get that with AI. You just won't. Right? It's not meant for that. And I think when people are trying to go too far in one direction, listen, we learn from our excesses, and I think the AI wave will continue to get better. But I think my suggestion right now is use it as the tool in your toolbox, not as a crutch. Okay? So I just want to put that out there. So the 3 pillars model of leadership. This is the thing that really is what I impress upon people for this psychology side of the business, is making sure that you're taking care of 3 things in the leadership model, which is around trust, which is around vision, and around communication. I don't have time to unpack all of these things because this could literally take me like 3 hours, but trust, vision, and communication. You cannot be an effective leader if you don't have trust, if you don't have vision, and you don't have communication. So if you're missing any one of those 3 things, you are ineffective as a leader. You're just not. I mean, if they're not going to trust you, they're not going to listen to your vision or anything you have to say. They may trust you, but and they know your vision. But if you don't have an ability to articulate that through effective communication, right, like typing in all caps, right, it's the same thing. You're not as effective unless you can be effective in all 3 of these areas. So you might be thinking, well, does leadership really all that matter that much, right? Well, why leadership? Now, for those of you, and this is the title of my next book, called Leader Boss. I've written 8 books. I'm in the process of publishing my 9th, or working on my 9th. I'm not publishing it yet, but I'm hoping it's going to be done in the spring. But Leader Boss is really taking these 2 concepts around being caring versus having candor. So this is something I learned from reading a lot of John Maxwell stuff, and he wrote, I don't even know, like 100 books on leadership. But I really like what he said about caring versus candor, in that if you're too caring as a boss, you will get walked all over. Anybody struggle with that? If I had 3 hands, I would put them all up, because I'm a nice guy. I don't like calling people on the carpet. My default is to be caring. That's my default. Candor is when you're kind of like, okay, like these are the rules, like you got to follow these rules, and if you don't do these rules, you're going to get, like you're always constantly whipping them with a stick, right? That's candor. That's too much. My argument is that you have to have an equal mix of both caring and candor. And if you have an equal mix of both caring and candor, you're going to be far more effective as a boss, as a leader boss, because now you're an effective boss and you're an effective leader. So if you are too much caring, you're going to get walked all over. If you have too much candor, they're going to think that you're a tyrant, and they are going to do up to, but never more than their job description. And that is all. And realistic, and they're going to be doing it out of like no sense of obligation, but just making sure that they don't get fired. That's basically it. So if you know what I'm talking about in that instance, this is what happens when you have either too much caring or too much candor. So the next piece here is around level 5 leader companies. The level 5 leader was something that was described by Jim Collins, who wrote Good to Great, Great by Choice, Built to Last. He wrote a bunch of books around businesses that were that had these level 5 high level leaders that were very, very effective. And these level 5 leader companies, they were significantly more profitable. They grew significantly faster. They had a very strong company culture, which we're going to talk about here at the end. And they operated very well under a very strict, well-defined set of core values. And these were companies that you'll know, like Amgen, Intel, Microsoft, or Southwest Airlines. So these, when you're looking at the growth that they had, they grew in over the course of the 30 years that they were being reviewed. They grew 20, like Amgen, for example, grew 25 or 24 times more than the overall market. So they take the stock market as a whole. They look at Amgen. If you took $1,000 and put it in the stock market, it would be worth, like 6% more. Well, the Amgen would be worth like 24 times that number. Okay, so I'm just telling you, like, it's significant, and it was over and over and over again during the data set for Intel or Microsoft or Southwest Airlines, by the way, 63 times the market. Holy crap. And that's just because of their leadership. And Herb Kelleher, who founded that company, was a phenomenal leader. And these are impressive returns. And the thing is, too, is that the companies that are voted the 100 best places to work, there's several lists that are out there. Forbes, I know, does one. But they consistently, year over year, they consistently represent those that have the highest stock returns. If you want to invest in any companies, individually, this is the only list that I would look at personally, right? And making sure making sure that I'm, investing in these companies because they have such solid company cultures. So leadership does. It makes a huge difference. And the reality is, because growth requires change, it necessitates change, and leadership is what manages that change. So if you want to be an effective boss, whatever company that you're going to be growing, make sure you're leaning into your leadership component. It's not just all the nuts and the bolts and the finances and everything else. You have to make sure you're an effective leader, and not about being too caring and not about being too much of a tyrant, because you can't, people are just, they're not going to follow you. They're not going to do more than asked. So this is something else you need to remember, is that the leader will never go faster, or I'm sorry, the business will never go faster than the leader. So the speed of the leader dictates the speed of the team. Right? Like, think about the metaphor of, you're the leader heading people up a mountain, right? You're the guide. Well, they can't go faster than you, right? They can go ahead a little bit, but they're always going to be looking back, and you're going, yep, go a little bit left. Yep, go a little bit right. But they're never going to go faster than you. They can't outpace you. So you have to keep that in mind, is that, it's also up to the leader to make sure that things are executed timely, right? You can't take forever to do something, because the market simply moves too fast. You can't take forever to make decisions, right? It's also why you can't have 50 things going on, right? So you have to stay true to your priorities. Remember that having an abundance of priorities, it has the same impact as having no priorities. So this is also why you, as the leader, can't be a barn fire mess, right? And I'm just telling you this out of something that I've experienced personally. So that is the systems and the people part. So now let's talk about the 4 core functions. And this is true in every business. And these 4 functions have to exist, and they go around lead generation, sales, operations, and accounting. And these 4 functions happen for your customer. Your customer experiences your company in this order: first lead generation, then sales, then operations, then accounting. So I want you to think about that when you're thinking, like, okay, well, how are my, many people, especially in the early days of the operational function. I know there's a couple people here with some startup ideas. That's great. And you're focusing on the operational function, which is fine. But I'm just letting you know that the lead generation piece, I'm going to make this point here, is that when you're starting to think about like scaling this or growing this company, right? The lead generation function is when you're targeting your ideal client avatar. Where have you heard that before? Where have you heard client avatar before? Hint, it was earlier on, right? In the 3 C's of business vision, right? This is where it starts to come full circle. And when you're really clear about who your avatar is, it's much easier to reach them, right? Because you know exactly who it is that they want to work with. It's much easier for me to direct my marketing towards them, because I know what their problems are. Again, I like working with married business owners who have kids at home, because I know how swamped busy they are, and I know how to reach them with certain language. right? So it's really easier. It's much easier if you know specifically who, right? Like, and you're like, well, I do B2B. I don't know. Yeah, but there's someone in that company who's so frustrated with how that company is running. That's the person you need to reach, because, and then the decision maker who can help them say yes to your product or service, right? So it's always comes down to a human, right? The other thing is, when you get really clear about your avatar, these are generally the clients that are going to make the most amount of money with the least amount of drama. And I don't know about you, but I'm in my 50s, and I do not want to be dealing with a bunch of drama at this stage in my life. So when you're thinking about the four core functions, I want you to start thinking about the 15 reasons why people buy. This list, by the way, is in the business plan. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this. You will see this again. Okay, so I'm going to come back to this in just a hot second. But this is the four core functions of business. The first thing is around lead generation. Everything has to support your lead generation function, because here's the reality, and this is the sad reality, is you can have the best, most efficient business. You could be a paragon of virtue. Your product or service might be the best thing ever. Your sales technique so dialed in, you could sell voting booths to Castro, and you can still starve. That's the reality. There's no way of getting around this whole marketing piece. Like, yeah, you can have the best product and service. And I've had people come to me that, like, we're looking for help, and I'm like, wow, that's a really cool product or service. And I'm like, why aren't you doing better? And they're like, I don't know, I can't get anybody to buy it. I'm like, well, what are you doing for promotion? Crickets. Well, I post on LinkedIn, once a week, and and they're relying on social media, but they think posting is marketing, and that's not the same thing. So you can never, ever, 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 ever take your foot off the gas when it comes to lead generation. And the lead generation activities, I would tell you, in the early days, and especially when you're trying to grow your company, they need to be 60 to 70% of your activities. I'm just being honest with you. Like, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say, oh yeah, just, hunker down. But no, I'm talking 60 to 70% of your day. So if you're talking about a 10-hour day, I'm talking 7 hours need to be allocated to 6 to 7 hours per day need to be allocated towards lead generation activities. And I mean very specific lead generation activities, not like check email or post on internet. I'm talking about like picking up the phone and either cold calling people, cold emailing people, sending out letters, something directly related to lead generation, right? Not just waiting for them to come to you. So let's talk about the sales function. So the sales function is, it just picks up the conversation that started by the lead generation function. And this is also understands, the sales being effective at sales also lets you know that it's not about holding people's heads underwater until they say yes, right? There's plenty of people teaching that method, and it doesn't work, right? It's not as effective. You want to understand that effective selling is about finding solutions for your avatar. So the operational functions, right? We talked about lead gen, we talked about sales. Now we're going to talk about operations. The operational function, if you're going to get stuck, generally this is where you're going to get stuck. You're going to get stuck in the operational function. So if you're a roofer, you're going to get stuck roofing. If you're a consultant, you get stuck consulting, right? So that's the thing. The accounting function is, if you're going to ignore something, generally you're going to ignore the accounting, right? I have a degree in accounting, and I'm a little embarrassed to admit that I'd say, well, I've got more money in my bank account this month than last month. Must be doing okay. And I'm almost embarrassed to admit that, but I'm just telling you that you cannot possibly be effective if you don't have an accounting function. So I have a whole other session on, I think some of you were actually in that session, in the financial literacy for business owners section. I'm going to be hosting that again in a week or so. So if you're interested, just keep an eye on on the website or on Eventbrite, so you can get involved in that. But I'm just telling you, you have to have an accounting function. You can't get around that. So let me ask you, are all of these things the same skill set? No, they're not the same skill set. Lead generation, sales, operations, and accounting, they are not the same skill set at all. And this is why you need good people. And in fact, all of these things matter. They all matter for different reasons. And I'm just asking you, what's going to align these people with all these different skill sets to your company? Oh my gosh, core values. Here it comes again, like a bad penny, right? So this is where knowing what your core values are and defining, what your core values are as a human being, and saying, no, these are the hills that I really want to die on. And And again, your business is just an extension of you. So when you're really clear about what your core values are, you can interview better, you can hire better, you can coach and counsel better. Termination is a lot easier. Like, you know what? Hey, I like you so and so, but it's just not a good fit. We're just not a core value fit, and that's okay. Right? It sets the tone for meetings. It defines the company culture and unbelievably raises the level of personal commitment. So again, remember that you're not going to be the only person making the decisions in your company. You're not the only role model. And if you don't define your core values will be defined by the strongest personality in the room. If that's you, that's fine. But don't ever plan on leaving. That's the reality. So I'm just saying, like, if you don't define your core values, they will be defined by the strongest personality in the room. And what happens if you're not around? And what happens when you want to sell the company? That becomes a major problem. So core values is what helps define the company culture. And like I said earlier, the company culture and the company brand are inextricably linked. You might be thinking, well, what's a company brand? The brand is what they're known for, right? Think of like Southwest Airlines. Think of their brand, right? They're a fun airline, and their company culture and their brand match, right? Think about Chick-fil-A, right? What are they known for? High quality fast food, God and family orientation, right? Their brand and their culture are inextricably linked. Okay, well, what about Walmart? What are they known for? How about that? Yeah, they're known for low prices, but they're not really great to their people. They really aren't. And that is become known as their company brand. So the brand can either work for you or it can work against you. But trust and know you will have a company brand. So why not define it by a well-defined set of core values? So the core values, they will create unity. And vision will always thrive in an environment of unity. And that's why this is so important. So we did this last piece, and now we're coming into the business plan itself. And I want to set you up for success beyond today. So the business plan, I'm going to do these 9 elements for the last 10 minutes or so. I'm going to go through the business plan. You're going to have your own copy of this. So I'm not going to read it through. You can read it on your own. You guys are adults. You can go through this, but it breaks it down into 9 areas. So let me just reveal these 9 areas. First, it breaks it down by industry, then product or service, target market, demographics or market size, and then competition. Then for the last 4 is marketing strategy, critical risks or SWOT analysis, right? We'll talk about a SWOT analysis here in a second. Financial piece, the financial component, and then any metrics or milestones. So, like I mentioned earlier, you want to go to strategicboardroom.com, okay? Go to that page, click on courses and links, or courses and logins, and you will just scroll down a little bit and you'll see the free download. You don't even have to enter your email address. Just go to that and it will pull it up on your page. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kill the screen share here. And I'm going to show you guys something else. Let me stop the screen share. And I want to show you something else, which is the actual business plan. So give me a second while I do that. Wish there was a faster way of doing this. Thank you for your patience. Okay, here we go. So if you guys are seeing this, so here's the thing when you're looking at the business plan worksheet. Let me bring this back up over here. I'm going to take myself completely off the screen. There we go. All right. So when you're seeing this, I want you to think about this in terms of the you've got all this stuff up here. I'm not going to read it to you. You can read this on your own. So right up here, number 1 is the industry. And it's just basically be specific in your industry. And this is the core purpose that we talked about earlier on. So you want to make sure you're really specific on the industry that you're competing in, right? This shouldn't be that difficult. And you make sure that you thought this through. And I really want you to be really dialed in terms of what area, like, what geography, what your geographic offering, like be really, really specific. Don't just say, well, I'm in real estate. Okay. That's not specific enough, right? If you're saying, well, I'm in AI, well, that's not specific enough. I want you to be really, really clear about what industry that you're going to be in, what problems that you solve, and don't be afraid to niche down. When you're looking at number 2, this is the product or service. Again, this is when it comes to your core purpose. Again, what industry are you in? What problems do you solve? That relates to the product or service that you're offering. And again, it starts to ask you specific questions. Describe the product or service in one clear sentence. Clarity is your friend here. Remember, like, if you can't speak to it in like a fifth grade level, it's not clear enough. And this was something that was brought home by Stephen Jobs of Apple Computer. He really understood that making something simple was what was really the toughest thing to do. Like speaking about something super complex in a really easy manner. Think about when he launched the iPod, right? What did he say? It's 1,000 songs in your pocket. It can't get any simpler than that. So if you can't do that yet, then chances are you're not clear. And if you're not clear, it's not going to magically become more clear in the minds of your customers. So again, what problems do you solve? Get really clear on that. Make it simple as possible to convey. If you can't do it simply, I'm telling you, it's probably not going to be received well. Number 3 is your target market. Think about, again, this is specifically related to your third C, which is your client avatar. This is the target market, your ideal customer, so forth and so on. You can answer those questions there. These are the 15 reasons why people buy. This is something that I want you to think about, and I mentioned it on that one slide. You know, you can make money, save time, avoid effort, escape pain, etc., etc. Like, I want you to think about all the ways that your product or service, directly or indirectly, helps them in each of these 15 categories, in all of them. You might say, well, my product or service doesn't help them make money. Okay, directly or indirectly, it should. Find a way to make it work. And the reason why is because it helps you get much more dialed in and much more clear about your product, your service, your offer, and your avatar. Number 4 is the demographics and market size, right? Start to calculate how big the market is. I did this when I started considering the number of people that I like working with. Typically, my avatar tends to be in the United States, although I have worked with people outside of the United States. But my demographic is about 30 million, right? You know how I measured, you know how I know that number? Because I went to the SBA's website and I said, well, how many solopreneurs are out there and how many businesses are 1 to 19? That's about 30 million, right? So I know roughly, my market size and where they are, and I know what their problems are. Is the market growing or contracting? That sort of thing. What about competition? Right? Well, that's why I also stopped referring to myself as a coach. You know why? Because during COVID, everybody became a damn coach, right? They had dishwashing coaches and tanning coaches and like all these different coaches, right? So I didn't want to compete. I wanted to differentiate. So you do not want to offer a Me Too service. And a Me Too service is like, oh, you do that? I do that too. So you want to differentiate yourself and make sure that you're not in direct competition, but you're always doing something slightly different. And you can compete on either market, on price, on service, or on quality. You cannot compete on all three. If you do, you will go out of business. That's what happens. And just look at Kmart and many other examples. Number 6 is your marketing strategy. We started talking a little bit about strategy in the process component around the strategic planning, right? This is around marketing strategy. So what marketing channel we want to fill up first? And these are all the different questions. And again, you should just go through these and just start answering these questions, the SWOT analysis, the strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, your threats, and all of the stuff that I talked about with a few exceptions here. You're going to have to do some of your own research on this, but like the financial piece. Okay. And it talks a little bit about pro forma balance sheet, a pro forma income statement. If you hear the word pro forma, don't be like freaked out about it. It just is future casting is what you're looking to do with that. And then right here is a break-even analysis in terms of how you actually have to break even, whether it's based on break-even quantity or break-even sales. It's actually not that hard to it's just a basic, simple math calculation. It's not that hard, just basic algebra. And then the 9 is the metrics and milestones. These are the metrics that you want to track to say, hey, this is how I know that we're hitting certain milestones and how we're being successful. So this is everything. And you can get, like I said, you can get a free copy of this if you go to Strategic Boardroom. Where did I go? There we go. strategicboardroom.com. Go to courses and logins, and you can go just scroll down to that, and you can get a free copy of that on your own. My recommendation, print it off and work it, utilize it, and be willing to scratch it out and rework it again. This is what, this is really the nuts and bolts of it. Now, did I promise you it was going to be easy? No. Hakeem, I'm glad this was helpful for you. Sarah, thank you. I'm glad that this was helpful for you as well. So here's what I'm going to do. I am going to land the plane. I'm going to put this video on YouTube, and we're going to send it to you, send you the link here in I'm going to try to do it tonight actually before I go home. So you'll probably get it sometime the next day or two, and you'll have that. So let's keep in touch. If you are interested in more trainings that I have, just keep an eye on Eventbrite, or just keep an eye on Strategic Boardroom in terms of the other sessions that I have coming down the pipeline. I've got a couple of sessions coming up next week. I don't have any more this week coming up, and then I'm taking a week off because I'm going down to Florida with my bride and my daughter, and then we'll be back on the schedule again. So if hopefully this was helpful. Thank you guys for sticking around. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you guys next time.